Okay, so I ended up taking this file that we were working on before, and I ended up just putting it its own file so we can sort of isolate this. And let's actually just start from scratch. And here, I'm just going to create a file called user story tags, which is going to be our many-to-many. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say sequelize equals require sequelize. And I'll go over here and I'll say specify that db equals new sequelize. Again, we would do this with an environment variable, but let's actually just put it in here, Postgres, localhost, and let's call this story tags demo. And if we go over here and we say put a model here, so again, we'll do a story, db, define story, and we'll specify that a story just has a name, db, sequelize, string. And if we set up a sync function, we can return sync force true, and we can call it by calling sync. Now when we run this, let's say nodemon story tags, and we've got an unexpected token here. Let's take a look. So if we're doing a one-liner, we don't need a return. I think that's what it doesn't like. And I think what it really doesn't like is I think I am in an infinite loop. I want to say db sync. So I think probably that database doesn't exist. If I do a then, error, console log E, I'll find that out. And we see that this database doesn't exist, so let's go and create it. And go to our Postgres, create database. Oh, it exists already. Story tags demo. Is that possible? Let's see. Localhost story tags demo. Database doesn't exist. Let's see if it exists now. Oh, now it looks like no. Okay. Let's test this out. So let's go back. See, another problem I have too many things going on at the same time. I'm not taking my own advice. Let's run this again. And I think that this is actually doing, so I really don't want this error in a then, I really want it in a catch. Okay, so let's start to set up our many-to-many. So our many is going to be a story, and we'll specify that we have a user. And since we want to make this connection, let's do this in lowercase. We've got user, we've got story, and you know, again, sequelize gives us the ability to do belongs to many, but just to sort of keep it a little bit simpler here, let's say that we have a user story. We'll say db define user story. And if we ended up just doing that, and we went back to our database and we looked at our database structure, we would see that we have a user stories, but if I just look at user stories, I would see that I really just have an ID there. What I want to do is I want to specify that my relationship is that a user has many user story. And in fact, I don't want to do user stories. Let me do tags. We're going to tag a story. So we'll say we have a tag, and we'll say that we have a tag story is going to be a tag story. Makes a little bit more sense. And we'll say that a story has many tag story. Okay? So if I ended up just setting up that relationship, what that would allow me to do, if now I look at my my tag stories, because it's going to be plural, I would see now I have my story ID, but also I need to also specify that a tag has many tag story. And that's going to give me my two columns here. Right, so a tag story has a story ID and a tag ID. This allows me to do my many-to-many relationship. So one of the things that that's going to allow me to do is that, let me go over here and specify a seed. And here we'll return that we're going to sync. And then we'll do it then, and let's create some of our entities. So what we can do here is let's actually create two stories and two tags. So we could specify that we're going to return a promise.all. And we'll set up two stories. We'll say that we have a story, create name, the foo story, of course. And we'll also have another name for the foo bar story, which is a second story. We'll create a tag, and the name of the tag is going to be foo, and the other tag is going to be bar. And what we can do with this is that if we're going to seed this, let's just see that that doesn't create any errors. No, it doesn't matter. I see people put them in, I see intentionally sometimes, and I wonder about that. But I don't know if that's just accidental. What I'm going to do here, I always assume it's accidental, but I see it enough that it sort of leads me to believe that maybe it's intentional. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a spread. And this is going to give me foo story, foo bar story, foo tag, bar tag. And unexpected token here. So we're going to do a spread. And I forgot my operator here. We're going to do a spread, and fat arrow function is like that. So spread just spreads these things out. And what I want to do here is I want to add some tags. So what I want to do is I want to create two tags for my foo bar story and one tag for my foo story. So again, I could do a return promise.all. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say tag story.create. So I'm going to have a tag ID and a story ID. So I'll say my tag ID is going to be my foo tag. And my story ID is going to be my foo story. Actually, I want to do IDs here. So this is going to be my tag ID, my foo tag ID. If I just did that, this should end up running. And if I went to my database and I said select star from tag stories, let's see, it doesn't look like I have anything there. Let's see, let's actually get a catch here. Although I would have think I would have seen that. And let's actually do it then. And we'll go over here and we'll put in result. Oh, you know, I did this before too. I don't want to sync, I want to seed. Okay, so that should give me the results that I'm looking for. So I have this one tag, and that's going to be good for my foo story. But I want to do the same thing for my foo bar story. But that's also going to have what? Another tag, which is going to be a tag for the bar tag. So now at this point, I should have 3 tags, 2 of them for one story, just 1 for the other one. So, you know, one thing that you might want to do is, in fact, let's go and find this one story. So we'll say return story, find by ID. And what are we going to find? Let's actually go over here and let's do what we did before just to get something. We'll say let, and we'll say foo bar story. And I'll go over here, and once I end up getting into here, I'll say foo bar story equals foo bar story. So once I make it down into here, I'm going to do find by ID, foo bar story ID, and we'll do a then. This is going to be a story. Get rid of the semicolon. And let's do a console.log story.get. So here's our story. Now what we want to get are our tags that are associated with this story. So one thing we might do is go over here and do an include. And what do we want to include here? Well, we have to think about our connection here. We want to include our story tags, right, or our tag stories. Right? Now I could try to do that, and that will work. Let's take a look and see why that works, right? Because a story has many tag stories. So let's just see what that ends up giving me. So if I end up looking at this and I say story, and again, the relationship where you end up accessing this is going to be in tag stories. Again, it doesn't know what to name it. We could name it something else. But the reason why it names it that is that the model itself is tag story, okay? So it ends up giving it a plural of tag stories. And if we look at that, we'll see that we have tag stories dot length. So we've got a value of 2 there. Now, one thing that's interesting, if I look at tag story 0, and I look at it and I do a get on it, notice I see the tag, but I don't see the name of the tag itself. if I want to get the name of the tag, I've got to go a little bit deeper. So now, what I really want to do is I want to say the model is going to be our tag story, okay? And within that tag story, I want to do an include, because a tag story has a tag, okay? The only problem that I'm going to run into when I do that is that it's going to tell me that relationship doesn't exist. You have to be very explicit by going up here and saying, hey, look, by the way, okay, again, this gives us our foreign keys, but if you want to go from a tag story to a tag story belongs to tag. And that lets me do that include that says, hey, look, I want you to get the model for tag story, and I want you then to go down and get the tag. And now this would give me this information. If I do tag stories dot get, I could actually do tag stories tag dot get. And I'm going to end up getting that foo tag. If I said tag stories 1 dot tag get, I'm going to get that bar tag. Now, I also wanted to say that I wanted to show you instance methods before, but I got a little tripped up. Let's say that we wanted to do something like console.log, my story has multiple tags. Okay? Again, the way that I'm using this, okay, and this is up to you, the way that you use it, this is the way that I did it in the, you're going to do it in the workshop, is that, not in the workshop, but in the weekend assignment, is that you can see that he has multiple tags. Do you expect this to be synchronous or asynchronous? Yeah, because if it was asynchronous, I would pass some callback method to it, or I would have a then on it, okay? So for starters, I could go up here. First of all, if I go to run this, I'll get an exception. And the exception is going to be, has multiple tags is not a function. So I could go up to my story, put in has multiple tags. And I need to have the context. This way I need to do the function here. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Someone's paying attention. Thank you. Instance methods. Has multiple tags. And for the moment, let's just say return true. Okay? So it returns true. Well, let's actually do something a little bit different. Again, so what I'm getting at here is I expect the user to basically pass me, right? I've got, if not this, tag stories, meaning you didn't populate it. Throw, please populate tag stories first. Again, it's your code, you wrote it. And this is not going to get called. I should just end up getting back undefined. But otherwise, what is multiple? More than one, right? Return this dot tag stories dot length is greater than 1. So we end up getting true. So again, all I really wanted to show you here is that you have the ability to add logic to your models. And what this, again, ends up giving the ability to do, if we ended up converting this over to, real quickly, we ended up converting this over to an Express application to populate all of our stories and send them back. We could do that. I mean, it's a little bit silly here, but if we go up here, and I'm going to go in here and say const express equals require express. I'll say app dot const app equals express. And I'm going to go over here and say app.listen, and I'll hard code this for the moment. I'll say 3000. And it's going to tell me that it can't find express, so I will end up npm install express. And what should I have done? Save. Right. Now I'll do save. So I'm going to go over here, and let's set this up so that when we ask for a GET request / stories, we're going to say request response next. And we'll go over here and we'll say story find all. But we're just going to want to include our tag story. We'll do a then. This is going to give us our stories. And we'll say response.send stories. And we'll go over here and we'll do a catch just in case it's not hanging. Excuse me, catch, and we'll pass in next, just in case we get an error. So now if we run that, thank you. So now if I end up doing that and I go back over here and I say localhost 3000 stories, I'll see my stories along with their tags. Again, I don't have the individual tags there, but that's okay. Well, let's actually go in real quick, and we'll go and we'll bring in Swig. And we'll set up our Swig, set defaults, cache false, and we'll say app.set. Hopefully you can do this in your sleep at this point. HTML app.engine HTML Swig render file. And instead of actually just getting the stories, let's do a render. And we're going to render index, and we'll pass in our object for our stories. So now if we go to do that, it's going to probably tell us that can't find Swig. So we'll say npm install Swig, save. And we'll go back over here and put in a, so that should be running. Let's actually run that. And let's go back here. And it tells us it can't find its index page. So we'll set that up. It's going to be in views index.html. And we'll make that error go away. So what I want to get at here is that let's just say, for the sake of argument, we're going to put an HTML here. HTML, we're going to use our Swig syntax. And we'll go over here and we'll specify that we're going to do a for story in stories. End our for. And if I just do story, I'll get an error. But if I do a story JSON, I should see that story. Okay? Well, let's sort of break it out a little bit. We'll do each of these is going to be, we'll have a unordered list. Each of these could be a list item. And we'll do story.name. Now I want to show you something interesting. Okay? Nothing would prevent you, if I decided to go over here and put in has multiple tags and pass in my story. Okay? If I did that, nothing would really happen because has multiple tags has no context. Okay? By the way, Swig allows you to do stuff like this. If I go into story tags, Swig allows you to actually go up here and put a function in. Has multiple tags. where I'm passing in a story, and I say return story dot, what do we call it? Tag stories dot length greater than 1. Okay? And Swig gives me the ability to pass this to the render engine, saying, all right, hey, look, if there's a function you want to pass, I'm fine with it. It's being done on the server. We haven't done it yet. What we can do has multiple tags. That's fine. You know, this maybe. Let me see something. I think actually I could get away with this. And I wouldn't.
You did with one.
You don't have to do them all.
Oh, you don't?
No.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So it'll basically say it'll use that as a key if you don't give it a key. So if we do this, you know what I was mixing up is that sometimes when you end up passing things to a partial view, in Swig, you actually have to do it. It doesn't recognize the ES6 syntax, but you're not going to have to do that for this. So if I do this, notice it says false and true. That's fine. Okay? But I think what's a little bit better is, you know, take this logic. You know, we want our routes to be dumb. Get this logic out of our routes. Okay? Instead, we know that on our story object, has multiple tags. This way we could simplify this and just do what we really want to do is say, ask the story itself. Don't ask our Swig engine. Say, hey, look, story has multiple tags. False and true. And you could imagine, you know, things you could do with this, like let's, just for the sake of argument, story, I'm going to put an ngIf here, not an ngIf. If story has multiple tags, end if, and I'll do something silly. I'll say, look, if we actually have multiple tags, then I'm going to say style, color, green. So we could see that that guy is green, and let's say otherwise, color is red. And I forgot my percentage. So again, a silly example, but what I want to demonstrate to you is that I think that this is a better way to put in this kind of logic, the same logic that you're going to put into the assignment, rather than putting a lot of methods here and doing calculating here. Put it in as an instance method. Okay? Look, you could also pass parameters to instance methods as well if you want to. You saw that we had methods like, does this user have a department? And again, what you're going to be doing is, again, making sure that the user departments is populated, passing in a department, and seeing if you can find the department. Okay? Let me stop this recording.